Ain't no way, ain't no how. I'ma let somebody come and shut me down. Hold my own, I'ma stand my ground. I'ma rep my city and salute my town. Said ain't no way, ain't no how. I'ma let somebody come and shut me down. I'ma hold my own, I'ma stand my ground. And I'm ready for whatever, and I still stand proud. Ain't no.
Get your knives, get your blades, get your forks, get your light tubes, get your pencils, get whatever you use to slice somebody open because, oh, and get your umbrella too because you're going to need that for all the blood pouring down because we're about to dive deep, and I mean deep into the wound, the blood wound, the cut open knife wound of deathmatch wrestling. And really it's comparison and people, you know, how people hate it to, well, general wrestling. I mean, because some people have different opinions on it. But this is the B&B show. Professor Bear and, as always, the Blade. So, just to start
appropriate today too, Blade.
That's true. I guess that's a good name for me because I do like some deathmatch wrestling. I'm a big fan of deathmatch wrestling. A lot of people don't like deathmatch wrestling. That's okay. It's not for everybody. It's different. It's hardcore. If you can't take blood, obviously you can't watch it, you can't stomach it. It's very, very, very hardcore. A lot of times they have to stop matches because stuff gets too bad. But deathmatch wrestling has been around for a long time. And I mean, you go back, one of the earliest, if not the earliest, is Onita in FMW. He was big into the cutting and the big thing was barbed wire, exploding barbed wire to be exact. And basically Onita was good friends with a gentleman named Terry Funk, and Terry Funk was a bit of an extremist too. Basically, Terry Funk and Onita, they wanted to have a match where there was exploding barbed wire. So they did, and it was bad. Terry Funk was like literally stuck in the barbed wire, and they had to like cut him out. And there was just a bunch of really big matches back then that involved blood and violence and cutting and all that. And FMW with Onita was one of the first. And then you kind of go forward, and ECW becomes a thing. ECW was like the first major brand that really popped off, that was all about violence, go crazy, riots, let's go insane wrestling. And that introduced, I mean, you have Sabu, Terry Funk was part of it, Cactus Jack became part of it, Sandman, Rob Van Dam, all these people from the original East, the Dudley Boys.
Oh, yeah.
All these people, the Blue Mean,
Public Enemy.
Oh my God, how can I forget New Jack?
Exactly.
New Jack. And all these people, they were so the thing about ECW, fans were so loyal to it, and they were so loyal to the fans. It still is to this day probably the most loyal, has the most loyal fan base ever. You still see any ECW star come out in any promotion, people are going to start chanting ECW. Paul Heyman comes out and they chant ECW. When he came out the other day in Philadelphia, where ECW started at the 2300 Arena, as they call it now, they were chanting ECW. and
he had to say something.
Yeah, he had to
get
say
them the boo.
Yeah, and that because that's how big it is, and that's how big it was, and that's how much of an impact it had. But you fast forward a little bit, other companies started to come out, like probably the biggest deathmatch wrestling promotion to this day is No, I take that back. I think GCW is still the biggest deathmatch promotion to this day. Game Changer Wrestling. But my favorite, and the reason I say that, the biggest to me is CCW, Combat Zone Wrestling. Combat Zone Wrestling has put out a lot of big stars, and has had a lot of great, wrestling events and stuff like that. But a lot of probably the biggest star today that a lot of people know of who not only wrestled a lot for CCW before he was big, but also GCW, is Jon Moxley. Jon
Yes,
Moxley
sir.
was a big part of CCW, a big part of GCW, and a big part. I used to watch them all the time. They have what's called the Tournament of Death. They have tournaments of death every year. Basically, it's outside, and a bunch of people go out there, and it's literally a tournament, and they fight, and they basically kill each other. And whoever keeps going, they keep going and keep winning. Probably the most popular tournament of death happened when another popular deathmatch wrestler, probably the biggest deathmatch wrestler people talk about, Nick Gage. He went out there during a tournament of death, and he got cut with a light tube, but it cut his arteries, and he was bleeding bad. They had to literally stop the show, and they had to get an air flight helicopter to come pick him up. He said that he literally forgot where he was. He said he died, but he said that he was dead. Basically, he died. It came back to life. Deathmatch wrestling is not for everybody. A lot of people crap on it. I don't understand the crapping on it, because if you don't like it, just don't watch it at all. I don't understand why the hate. Because it's not for everybody. Like Abdullah the Butcher. A lot of people used to crap. Yeah, Abdullah the Butcher. A lot of people crapped on the match where he got electrified in the chair. If you don't like it, just don't watch it. Like I said, I enjoy it because it kind of gives me that adrenaline rush of, oh my gosh, he's actually has a knife. He has the glass tubes. He has the pizza cutter, the cheese grater. And I grew up watching old tapes of ECW, so I kind of just was really into it. And if you don't like it, don't watch it. And that's just kind of my opinion. It's not for everybody. I keep saying that, but it's just not. It's not for everybody. But it's not like it's being shoved in your face and you have to watch it.
Exactly.
And a lot of people hated on Hangman Adam Page and Jon Moxley match at Revolution. Yeah, I know you bought the pay-per-view. Just pause it or turn it off until it finishes, and just keep watching the pay-per-view. You don't have to get on Twitter and, oh my gosh, this match sucks. Screw AEW. AEW sucks. Blah 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 blah. And everybody talking about Jon Moxley bleeding this, Jon Moxley bleeding that. I know he bleeds a lot. I'll admit he bleeds a little too much, but his roots are deathmatch wrestling. He came from deathmatch wrestling. He came from CCW. I mean, that's all deathmatch wrestling. The ending to that match he's done before at a tournament of death where he got choked by a chain on the ropes. That's happened before, because I've seen that tournament of death. But there's so many of them. I mean, there's Insane Championship Wrestling. There's Big Japan Wrestling. All these deathmatch wrestlings that just put insane matches. And local promotions, I'm sure, around you that are very local are big into deathmatch wrestling. And it's not for everybody, like I said, but even WWE has put on some, I could consider it deathmatch wrestling, honestly, because of how extreme it got. They considered extreme rules. Some of it has gotten a little more extreme. But what are your thoughts on deathmatch wrestling, Bear?
Like you said, I'm definitely a wrestling traditionalist. So I like some deathmatch wrestling. Hell, like you said, the grandfather of deathmatch wrestling, Terry Funk.
Yep.
Terry could be one of the best. Terry's one of the best technical wrestlers in his time, but Terry could get as dirty as you wanted to go. But I remember matches between him and Abdullah the Butcher.
Yeah.
Bruiser Brody, Stan the Lariat Hansen. Man, when I say brutal, there are just buckets of blood in the ring. And it's just elevated. And again, like you said, if you don't like it, don't watch it. There's all types of different styles of wrestling.
Indeed.
And ECW, if you're an ECW fan, you like brutal wrestling because they had it. They had technical wrestling, some of the best technical wrestlers in the world.
Rob Van Dam was one of the best, in my opinion.
Wow. Then they could turn that switch on and get one person you didn't mention, which is surprising, Raven.
Oh, Raven,
Raven,
Raven, Rhino, all those guys. I don't know.
man,
There you go. There's so many ECW
Ta-
people that
Tanaka,
Tanaka. Um, there's yeah. Raven is a big one though. Raven and Rhino are two big
yeah.
ones. And if if you're let's just say if you're a WWE guy and you don't want to watch any other promotions, but you want to watch, there's some people out there that want to see some blood. This episode's for you. We can give you a couple suggestions.
Oh, definitely.
So for WWE, I think my favorite extreme match that had, just whoa, has to be Cactus Jack versus Randy Orton at Judgment Day in 2004, I believe it was, where basically there was barbed wire. There was Vic Foley at one point tried to light the kendo stick with the barbed wire on fire, or the bat with the barbed wire on fire, but Eric Bischoff wouldn't let him. But that was the infamous match where Randy Orton tried to do the RKO and Cactus Jack pushed him. And when he fell on those he fell on thumbtack, and his face, oh my gosh, he popped up so fast. Oh, it was a brutal match. That's probably one of my favorites though, because it has a young Randy Orton, and it has a healthy and top of the line Cactus Jack just going in. A recent one though, you could call it recent. It happened over 10 years ago, but I consider it in this kind of generation of wrestling. Brock Lesnar versus John Cena at Extreme Rules in 2012.
Oh, man.
I really enjoyed that one because that was the one John Cena, Brock Lesnar dislocated John Cena's shoulder. Brock flew over the top turnbuckle and hurt his knee really bad. John Cena attitude adjustment on the steel steps. Brock Lesnar took the chains and punched Cena in the face. Switch that. John Cena took the chain and punched Lesnar in the face, and Lesnar busted open. Brock Lesnar tackled Cena at the beginning and started elbowing him. Cena became busted open. That match was brutal. There's so many though. If you just want straight blood, Eddie Guerrero versus, I believe it was JBL.
Yes. Oh my God.
Basically, Eddie Guerrero went to blade himself when he got put underneath it was like a table with a skirt. Well, he bladed himself, but he hit an artery. And when he came, that to this day is actually still the bloodiest match I've probably ever seen, because he cut too deep on an artery. And when he came out from under that table, everything all the way down to his shoulder was red, crimson red. I honestly don't know how he didn't pass out. You could tell though that his legs were becoming like jelly.
Yes,
he was losing too much blood. But it was just crimson, crimson, crimson.
Well,
Oh my gosh.
I got a WWE match, but I have to say this when you want to talk about bloody AEW. Cody versus Dustin Rhodes.
Yes. Not only a bloody match.
My God.
That's not only a bloody match, that's an emotional match, and that's one of AEW's best matches they put on. I mean, you can even talk about Thunder Rosa versus Britt Baker in the Lights Out match. That match got pretty extreme too, man.
But my top ever, nothing in WWE would top Hell in the Cell, The Undertaker versus Mick Foley.
No,
nothing.
And not just because he throwing him off the cage, but the fact that when he chokeslammed him through the top, that wasn't supposed to happen. The cage was the cage was supposed to like kind of give, but it was supposed to have him to where he would kind of roll off of it and barely land on the ring. But that thing buckled and he flew straight through, and it knocked him out for a minute. And his tooth was literally like up
in his nose. I never forget that. I would never. I was on a date. We were sitting there watching it, and my ex-wife, she became my ex-wife. She was like, his tooth is in his nose. I was like, no way. Not. I was like, holy crap. Dude, it is.
And the best part about that, my JR, dude, He go, good God Almighty, he killed him. He killed him. He killed him.
And,
We just witnessed a murder.
and a lot of people don't know the Undertaker got knocked out too.
Yeah, he did. That match was all around straight hell. Like it says, Hell in a Cell. If you've never seen it, go back. King of the Ring, 1998.
And Terry Funk getting choke slammed down in his shoe. Oh, I would never forget that.
Oh my gosh. It was. I know everybody who's been a WWE fan has seen the clip of Mick Foley getting thrown off the cell.
That's just a small part of it.
Yeah, that's just a small part. Because I think the one where he fell straight through onto his head, I think that was even crazier than that because that wasn't supposed to happen. He fell straight through the thing. That was a straight choke slam from hell to hell. I mean, that was just, oh man. But like I said, deathmatch wrestling is not for everybody. Extreme wrestling, extreme rule, and none of that is not for everybody. A lot of people just can't stomach it, but a lot of people just, they hate it because it's not the traditional wrestling. You can hate it, just don't get on social media and Twitter bad mouthing it because I mean we're all wrestling fans in the end. We're all watching wrestling, and deathmatch wrestlers can wrestle too.
That was one of my biggest points when I said Terry Funk. Terry Funk is a wrestler. It's not like he just, okay, well, I can't do anything else. I'll just bring a table or chairs or whatnot. John Moxley is one hell of a technical wrestler. Oh. Don't discount anybody for what they do and what you don't see them do. You have to be talented to be a wrestler. And you can't have one style and think you're going to make it.
Well, not just that. I promise a lot of the wrestlers that you probably like don't have the guts to get out there and bleed like that or get through barbed wire or glass. Because I can say I'm not going out there and doing that. If I knew how to wrestle, I'd go out there and wrestle, but I'm not taking glass or barbed wire or anything. I won't do it. Man. And that's another reason why I like the wrestling is because I respect those guys for that. I mean, some of the stuff Mick Foley does, or Nick Gage, or New Jack, or any of these guys. Speaking of New Jack, I got a match.
It's not the one I think of.
There's so many matches, but there's one that I don't think it is. I'm not going to talk about the mass train incident.
Oh, okay.
And I'm not going to talk about the one where he threw
Balls Mahone.
Yeah. And tried to literally kill him. And then he said, because somebody said, you barely missed the ring. No, you barely missed the floor. He said, I was aiming for the floor. I'm not going to talk about that one. I'm going to talk about a different one. So it was at NWA Main Event Wrestling. It was New Jack versus an older wrestler called Gypsy Joe.
Oh my God.
Okay, so little backstory of people who never heard of this match. Basically, Gypsy Joe is, well, he's a legend, okay? And he's
legitimately a tough guy. Legitimately.
Yes, he legitimately is a tough guy, but he's also, like, during the time of this match, he was like 70-something years old. And the thing about his gimmick is he no-sells a lot of people's stuff, okay? And New Jack didn't really understand that. And it gets even worse. So before the match, I believe Gypsy Joe said something along the lines of, "Don't worry, kid, I'll take care of you," or something like that. And New Jack didn't like that. And it gets even worse because New Jack, I believe, was high or on cocaine or something. And he gets out there and they start fighting. And this was in, one of the arenas where the fans are right there. It was an independent little arena. The fans are right there in the chairs. There's nothing blocking them. They're right there. And New Jack goes out there and he starts, beating on Gypsy. Well, Gypsy's no selling it. And New Jack is not happy about that. New Jack, for nobody knows, has a short temper, and he doesn't like to BS with anybody. And he has his stuff all around respect in the ring and trust. And Gypsy Joe was no selling it. And so New Jack got mad and he starts really beating on this guy, this 70-something-year-old man. He's really beating on him, like hard, beating him. And he starts throwing him into the fans, into the chairs, and all the fans are like, and there's kids there, and all the parents are getting mad and yelling at New Jack. They're yelling at him. They're telling him to stop beating him. And New Jack is cussing at the fans and cussing at Gypsy Joe. And the fans are cussing at New Jack back. And New Jack takes a blade and he starts playing Gypsy Joe. And oh my gosh.
It got bad. The racial.
Yeah,
it got bad.
The fans were like, stop beating on them. They were calling them names. And oh my God.
A couple of fans actually came to try to stop New Jack. And
New Jack tried to beat on them. And New Jack basically, New Jack didn't want anybody to mess with him. And New Jack was all about respect and trust. Yeah,
man.
So New Jack has had some crazy matches. We're not even going to get into the mass transit.
Lord bless his soul. Woo.
Yeah, if New Jack was still alive, I'd be scared because I didn't want him watching this video. He'd probably come after us.
No, hey, I can say I met New Jack. New Jack is one of the nicest people I have ever met in the wrestling business. And it's funny because with his reputation and his quick fuse, the time I got to talk to him and we got to talk about different things, he was so nice and respectful. And man, like I said, I really, really, really respected him and understood his character and understood when he got messed up, when he got high, just get out of the way.
Yeah, honestly. But we appreciate you all tuning in. If you like Deathmatch Wrestling, leave a comment. Tell us what your favorite matches are. Tell us if you watched any of the ones we suggested. Comment what else you want us to talk about. We'll talk about anything, anytime, anywhere, any gimmick, any character, any promotion, anything like that, any time era, any pay-per-view, you name it, we'll talk about it. Just like, share, comment, subscribe.
And please don't blade.
Don't go home. Okay, if there's anybody who basically after clicking on this video, don't go knife blade yourself or anything, please.
Please don't.
Leave it to the professionals.
Exactly.
Like they say on WWE, don't try this at home, school, or anywhere. Even though most of us ignored that, like I did.
But that's something different. It's something different.
That's something different. All I'm saying, my friend had a trampoline when I was a kid, and we ignored that rule all the time.
But you shouldn't. You shouldn't.
No. You should.
Remember,
don't ignore that rule because you do not want to be put in the walls of Jericho. I've been put into a lot of walls of Jericho, and it sucks. Okay, so. Don't ignore the rule. Don't try this at home. Don't blade yourself.
Be safe. Be safe.
And until next time, we appreciate you tuning in.
I came from the UK. I can't and won't be stopped.
Come on, there you go. Get out there. Get out there. Get out!
And I will never give you a contract.
I tell you what, if you're going to start off, you want to start off with one of the big guys. And to prove yourself, you want to knock them out.
This is the Wrestling Society Network.